Hello everyone, this is Supreeth, IAM engineer at ENH iSecure. This video helps you understand what master policy in CyberArk Privilege Access Manager PAM means and the configurations of the master policy. In this video, we will be discussing about what the CyberArk PAM master policy is and the main concepts of the master policy, the rules of the master policy, configuring a rule, configuration of privileged access workflows, password management, session management, and audit retention, creating exceptions to the master policy, combining privileged access workflows for improved efficiency. Upon completion of these topics, there will be a technical demonstration on master policy configuration. Let's commence our session with an introduction to the CyberArk PAM master policy. Master policy allows centralized governance of all privileged accounts in an organization with the help of different policies that it offers. The master policy offers a centralized overview of the security and compliance policy of privileged accounts in an organization, while allowing us to configure compliance-driven rules that are defined as the baseline for an enterprise. Master policy contains the business and audit rules for managing passwords and global system policy settings of an organization. This policy acts as a baseline. Basic policy rules enable us to outline key elements of privileged account management. These rules encompass various groups, including those for access workflows, password management, session monitoring, and auditing. Certain policy rules come with associated advanced settings. For instance, within the basic policy rules, we can specify if users are permitted to connect to target systems seamlessly using Click to Connect. In the corresponding advanced settings, we can define if users will also have the ability to view passwords. Exceptions are policy rules that deviate from the overall master policy for specific scopes of accounts. These exceptions allow for more granular control and customization based on the unique requirements of different platforms and account types. The master policy gives us a single configuration point for all the business rules associated with our passwords. The platform settings are very diverse because of the many different technical requirements of many different systems, but the master policy is fairly simple. It is divided into four sections: privileged access workflows, password management, session management, audit. Presented here is the user interface of the master policy. To display this page, users must be members of the Vault Admins group. Let us take a glance at each section. Privileged access workflows, where we can activate features such as dual control, exclusive access, and one-time passwords. Password management, where we can set the global password change and verification requirements. Session management, where we can activate privileged session management and its recordings. And audit, where we set the retention policies for vault data. In the platform settings, the IT administrator can configure technical settings defined by organization's environment and security policies to control how the system manages accounts on various platforms. Most of these settings have default values that do not need to be changed, but certain specific features need to be set according to the organizational requirements. Master policy settings define overarching rules and configurations and are applied globally across the organization. Platform settings inherit rules from the master policies. Exceptions to the master policy allows deviations for specific requirements. Account settings inherit rules from the platform settings. To configure a master policy item, we simply select it and click the pencil icon to change the value. After changing the value, we click the floppy disk icon to save. Let us now examine each section of the master policy in detail. Let's start with privileged access workflows. These are the main policy rules and settings that define how an organization manages access to privileged accounts. Users who have list and retrieve account permissions are able to click on Show and Copy. Users who have list and use account permissions are able to click on Connect. CyberArk PAM provides advanced workflows on top of these permissions to determine how users can access accounts and for how long. Dual control is a workflow with which we can require users to receive approval from authorized users before they can access passwords. This enables us to see who wants to access passwords, when, and for what purpose. By default, this rule is inactive. Activating it will require users to get authorizations before accessing privileged accounts. Depending on the configuration, authorization must be given by one or more managers or peers. This can provide better control over account access processes. CyberArk's dual control feature includes both basic and advanced policies, wherein basic policies requires managers or safe owner authorization for access requests. Advanced policies support multi-level access approval, where only direct manager can approve password access requests, and we can specify the number of confirmers required to authorize requests. Dual control configuration can be found under Policies, Master Policy, Privileged Access Workflows, then Required Dual Control Password Access Approval. When we click Edit Settings, we will be able to edit both the basic policy rule and advanced settings as well. Basic policy rule enables the user to request authorization to access privileged accounts from the respected safe owner or owner. When we enable the basic policy rule to active, the access request must be confirmed by one or more safe owners depending on the configurations that are defined in the advanced settings section. In the advanced settings section of dual control, we can tailor the approval process based on the requirement. Advanced settings of dual control include require multi-level password access approval. Only direct manager can approve password access request. Number of confirmers required to authorize requests. Let's see how these can be configured in detail for creating a well-versed approval workflow. We can use require multi-level password access approval when two levels of authorization is required to access privileged accounts. The first level of authorized users must confirm request before they are transferred to the second level of authorized users. After both levels of authorized users have confirmed the request, the user can access the account. If a request is denied at the first level, it is not passed on to the second level. If it is denied at the second level, the confirmations from the first level are irrelevant. The number of confirmers for each level is determined by the number of confirmers required to authorize request setting. To enable this setting, we just need to make the required multi-level password access approval to active and set the number of confirmers required to authorize requests in the advanced setting. We can enable only direct manager can approve password access request rule when we require end users to receive confirmation from their direct manager before accessing privileged accounts. This rule cannot be enabled together with require multi-level password access approval or with more than one confirmer. To enable this rule, we just need to make only direct manager can approve password access request rule to active and then disable the require multi-level password access approval in the advanced settings. Consider a scenario where dual control is configured. There are two types of actors, privileged users, managers, and approvers. When a privileged user wishes to access an account via the Password Vault Web Access (PVWA), they initiate the process by clicking the Request Connection button. This action triggers a notification to the manager or approver of the privileged user via email, and incoming request is displayed in the PVWA. Upon receiving the request, the manager or approver verifies the details of the incoming request. After confirming the request, the manager or approver approves it. Once the request is accepted, the privileged user is granted access to the connect to the account. In the PVWA, approver can either approve or reject the request directly, or he can click the View Details button before deciding. Once again, depending on the configuration, we can also require the approver to provide a reason before confirming. Once the policy is set and safe membership configured, users will see Request Connection button instead of Connect. Clicking this button opens the request form. The user must provide a reason for the request and can select a time frame if access is needed for a specific duration. If request time frame is selected, the user must specify a start and end time. To connect multiple times within the requested time frame, the user should select multiple access required option. If the user has sufficient rights, they can view the list of approvers. The list access request is passed on to the approver for verification and approval. Once the request is approved, the user will see the connect option enabled and can connect to the requested target. The parameter enforce check-in checkout exclusive access essentially means that only one user will be able to access a given account at a particular time, which provides us with non-repudiation. When applied, only one user will be able to access and use an account at any given time. The user can't say that the other administrator did it as the user is the only one who had access to the password. We can configure enforce check-in checkout exclusive access rule just by selecting the rule in the master policy window, toggling the status of the rule from inactive to active. This change will enforce check-in checkout exclusive access. One-time passwords are one of CyberArk's strongest defenses against credential theft. Anytime a password is used, no matter how carefully, there is always a risk of credential theft. One-time passwords reduce the risk by changing the password every time it's used. Let's see how one-time password policy works. The account is configured with a one-time password policy. The Central Policy Manager (CPM) is set to change the password based on the parameter when validity period. The user logs into the PVWA. The user requests access to the account configured with one-time policy. The user successfully uses the account with the current password. After successful use of the account, the CPM checks the min validity period. If the min validity period has elapsed, the CPM initiates a password change for the account. The CPM generates a new password for the account. The new password is updated in the vault and is now ready for the next use. This is how we can configure one-time password policy with the help of min validity period specified in the platform settings. The allow EPV transparent connections parameter provides corporate level control over users' ability to view passwords or launch privileged sessions. This parameter is active by default and probably should only ever be deactivated by exception. We can activate both the ability to transparently connect and allow the user to view the password. The user logs into the PVWA and selects the desired account and clicks the connect button to initiate the connection. The system generates an RTP file. The user downloads the RTP file to their local machine. The user opens the RTP file. This action enables a remote desktop session to the target system. The privileged session manager monitors the session activity. All actions performed during this session are recorded for auditing and security purposes. This is how we can configure allow EPV transparent connections, click to connect in the PVWA and successfully connect to the target machine. The parameter require users to specify reason for access, forces user to explain why they are using a particular account. This parameter, which is active by default, is one which probably best deactivated on a global level and then only activated for a certain sensitive platforms by exception, in particular during the early stages of a CyberArk PAM implementation. The default configuration for this parameter is a free text field, but we can configure it in such a way that the users may select options from a drop-down menu. Require users to specify reason for access rule consists of both basic policy rule and advanced settings. In basic policy rule, we can enable require user to specify reason for access and configure list of predefined users that user can specify while accessing the request, or we can configure advanced settings such that we can allow users to specify free text reason for access. By enabling require users to specify reason for access, user can request access to a target server by either providing a free text reason or selecting an option from a predefined list. Here comes the next section of CyberArk's PAM master policy, password management. Password management is the core functionality of CyberArk's privileged access security solution. These rules determine how passwords are managed. This master policy rule determines how frequently passwords must be changed. By default, passwords are changed every 90 days. We can see when password changes are planned in the compliance report. Let's understand the workflow of password change every X days. The Central Policy Manager or CPM manages passwords and SSH keys on devices based on the policies set by the vault administrators. It is essentially a batch processor for changing and verifying passwords and SSH key pairs. It is continually scanning the vault, looking for work to do, and then executing the necessary processes to carry out that work. Then the CPM notifies the responsible users or owners of the account prior to the password change. The CPM changes the passwords automatically based on the expiration period. Passwords generated by the CPM must conform to the password requirements of the target system and the organization's security policy. This master policy rule determines how frequently passwords will be verified. This rule ensures that passwords are regularly verified to maintain security and resolve password irregularities. Let's take a look at what happens when the CPM performs a password verification. This process starts by enabling automatic password management on the platform, allowing the CPM to apply the master policy settings to it. Then the CPM scans the vault for accounts requiring verification. Then the CPM notifies the responsible users or owners of that account prior to the password change if that is configured. The CPM retrieves the account information from the vault and then uses this information to log into the target system. The action either succeeds or fails, and then the CPM notifies the vault accordingly and changes the password if the verification fails. Here comes the next section of CyberArk's spam master policy, session management. CyberArk's master policy session management rules facilitates session isolation, monitoring, and recording, all from a single pane of glass. All privileged sessions of IT administrators on remote machines will be monitored and isolated. This rule is inactive by default. Let's have a look at the workflow of how a session is monitored and isolated with PSM. First, the user logs into the PWA and clicks connect to access a particular machine using a particular account. The PWA sends the user an RTP file to establish a connection from his or her workstation to the PSM server. At the same time, the PSM connects to the vault and fetches the account details, username, password, machine address, etc., and uses them to launch a second connection to the target system. The nature of the connection will depend on the technology required to establish the connection. This ensures PSM machine monitors the session and isolates the user workstation from target server, preventing any potential attacks originating from the user's workstation. All activities during each privileged session, whether in text or video format, will be recorded, compressed, and stored in the vault for future auditing. These recordings are transparent to users and cannot be bypassed. This rule is active by default. Let's have a look at the workflow of how a session is recorded and the session activity is saved to the vault with the help of PSM. First, the user logs into the PWA and clicks connect to access a particular machine using a particular account. The PWA sends the user an RTP file to establish a connection from his or her workstation to the PSM server. At the same time, the PSM connects to the vault and fetches the account details, username, password, machine address, etc., and then uses them to launch a secondary connection to the target system. The nature of connection will depend on the technology required to establish the connection. And finally, at the end of the session, the recording will be updated and dedicated safe in the vault. Here we have the final section of CyberArk Spam Master Policy, Audit. The audit rule is a critical component of CyberArk Spam Master Policy, with which we can control the activity's audit retention period. This rule determines how long safe activities audits are retained. By default, activity audits are stored for 90 days. If this parameter is set to 0, no activities in the safe will be recorded in the audit log. After setting a master policy that determines how accounts will be managed in the entire organization, we can create exceptions to add granularity as needed and set different behavior for specific platforms that will override the corresponding rules set by the master policy. Exceptions can be set for a scope of accounts associated with a specific platform. The master policy, together with the exception defined on each platform, determines the resultant behavior of the system on each account based on the platform. Making exclusive access active along with one-time password will ensure that when a user locks a password, the password will be changed at the end. The change cannot be delayed because the account is logged as exclusive, so no other users can use this password to reset the timer. Activating the third policy, dual control, along with the exclusive access and one-time password gives us even greater control and flexibility. If the request time frame is used, the password will only be changed by the CPM after the time frame has expired. This parameter overrides min validity period parameter and is only relevant when the master policy enforces dual control password access approval. And that concludes the detailed presentation on the master policy. In this session, we discussed an overview of what CyberArk PAM's master policy is, master policy UI, sections of the master policy, how to configure a master policy rule, privileged access workflows, password management, session management, audit settings, exceptions to the master policy, and combining workflows. In the next session, we'll have a detailed technical demo of master policy configuration.